Hi guys, I'm Katrina and I'm here today to talk about different accents from around the world and how the accent depends on where you've grown up. And I just think it's a really interesting topic and I'm really excited to explain where the shifts in English have come from throughout the years. So we've all heard accents before, but what specifically are they and where do they come from? So accents are defined as a particular mode of pronunciation of a word based on nationality, location, or social class. These differentiations can be found in pronunciations, particularly because of the emphasis on different syllables or letters. And my project focuses primarily on American, British, and Australian accents as they're all in the inner circle of English speaking countries. An inner circle English speaking country is defined as one of the original countries, which influence others based on the widespread use of the language through colonization or the media. And this actually lines up perfectly with the Module 5 video from our semester. So now that we kind of know where accents come from and what accents actually are, it would be a great time to talk about the beginnings of English. So English originated in the British Isles in the 5th century AD by the landing of three different Germanic tribes, the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes. The previous inhabitants of the islands were forced out to the north and the west of the country, but the name English actually came about because of the natives to the British Isles. They called the Angles' homeland England, and they also spoke Englishka. And then after the invasion of the original British Isles, some Germanic tribes continued to integrate their language around 450 to 1100 AD, which could then be classified as Old English. So a really good example of this Old English is the epic poem Beowulf. If you've ever read it, you'll note that there's some very obscure phrasing when it was translated to modern English. But I really actually enjoyed the tale when I had to read it in high school, and I would highly recommend it. After the invasion of the Germanic tribes, the language quickly became obsolete when William the Conqueror invaded the Isles in 1066 AD and brought the French in. French was the language of the royal court, and the country actually became linguistically divided by social class. The royals and the upper class spoke French, and the lower class spoke English. Even though French dominated for a bit, English gradually began to become dominant again, although there were significant evidence of French incorporation and their influence. One of the greatest examples of the use of Middle English is the poet Chaucer. Chaucer wrote Canterbury Tales, which is a series of stories that were told from a variety of different viewpoints. I also have read Canterbury Tales, and I actually read it in the original Middle English. So if you have time, it's definitely worth the read. And a little fun fact about Middle English is that Chaucer was one of the first to publish, leading it to become a prominent language in society. And so that resulted in a shift from traditionally publishing Latin, French, or Italian and gave the lower class access to books, as often they were not educated in the traditional Latin, French, or Italian languages. So Chaucer had great influence in making English a very prominent language. After the era of Chaucer, the Great Vowel Shift became a huge thing. So there's a rapid change in vowel pronunciations based on the invention of the printing press and the printing of English words. So vowels were beginning to be pronounced much shorter than the original, and this was the first time that there were also publishing, or also better known as today as grammar rules. That's when they were established. And in 1604, the first English dictionary was published. So finally, modern English is classified as a new set of vocabulary based on the Industrial Revolution. So the British ruled a large amount of land, and many foreign countries adopted English as its primary language due to the British influence. So we can actually thank the British for the rise of the English language. So now that we know a little bit about British English, let's talk about the shifts in English in America. So oftentimes they're referred to as Americanisms. They usually don't make sense to foreigners, which is really funny because they're actually a preservation of the original spoken language as British English evolved. I found this point to be incredibly interesting in my research because I always thought that British English was considered to be more proper, as in it traced back to its roots more originally. This is a common thought amongst the British as well, but American English actually roots more closely with the Shakespearean English. So I think that's actually something that's really cool. But some examples of these Americanisms include the word trash from rubbish, or loan for land, and fall for autumn. They're very well spread throughout the world because of the prevalence of American media such as movies, theater, or music. We also, as Americans, like to change the spelling of many words to make things easier and to prove the independence from Britain after the American Revolution. So, Noah Webster published the first American dictionary in 1758 to implement some of these really important spelling changes, like using a K in music instead of a C, or documenting the word skunk for the first time and changing the spelling of the word plow from P-L-O-U-G-H to P-L-O-W. So the British didn't just colonize America, but they also colonized Australia as well. And with the colonization of Australia, they also brought English over there. So Australia was originally inhabited by British exiles and ex-convicts, rather than what would be considered the proper British. They were often uneducated and used a large amount of slang, which has evolved the language of the entire continent. So based on that, they're often considered to be lazy or mellow, as according to Kate Collum, and why British, Australian, and American accents are different. With these differences, they actually use a large amount of cuss words, which are considered to be very bad in the US, but are really very acceptable in the Australian continent. It was really fun talking to some of my friends from over there and just hearing how they casually threw around some of the words. So, as you guys know, if you've been in America for a while, Americans love to vote on things or rate them. So I thought it would be fun to include a little thing that I ran into while I was doing my research. But since everything's always ranked, people thought they would rank accents. So let's see how English accents compare. They rank them by how sexy they are. And the British accent is ranked number 1 with 27%. The American accent is actually ranked number 2 with 8.3%, and Australian is ranked the number 4 accent in America with 8%, which I thought was really funny because oftentimes people get Australian and British accents confused. But by comparison, this seems to be pretty accurate based on the history of each language and the pronunciation and their current speech standards. So, I hope you guys enjoyed that little fun fact for your day. So, I have a few friends here from different parts of the world. I have Chad Idenson and Jack Anderson. So, we're going to have Chad go first, and he's going to read the sentences you can see on the slide.
The cat can't eat cereal. Feed the bird the core of the apple. Do you want to get food? Can you hear the difference?
The cat can't eat cereal. Feed the bird the core of the apple. Do you want to go get food? Can you hear the differences?
Thanks guys so much for watching, and I really hope that this was useful for your learning, and I would really like to give an extra special thank you to Chad and Jack for helping me out with their accents. Hope you guys all enjoyed. Have a great night.